I had been gone for 10 days. As the taxi turned onto my street, I saw sky where a roof should be, a lone lilac standing like a witness next to a field of wood chips. The excavator idled, breathing warmth into the cool evening. My son had torn down my house, my home, where I lived. My son waved at me as if he were greeting me at the airport. "Surprise, Mom," he shouted over the noise of the engine. "We've started remodeling." You'll love the open floor plan. I stepped onto the gravel that used to be my hallway. My boot sank into what used to be the living room rug. The mailbox lay on its back, my name crumpled in half. A city sign flapped on the fence, bright orange, the colors of an emergency. "Where are my pictures and my stuff?" I asked. My voice surprised me, flat, as if it belonged to someone who had foreseen this. "In storage, Ais," he said. "Everything important is safe." There was mold, problems with the wiring. It was dangerous, frankly. "We did you a favor." He didn't meet my eyes. He kept adjusting his watch. My daughter-in-law appeared with a clipboard and a lifeless smile. "We got a great deal on a show project. If we hurry, we can build a duplex and sell one apartment. You get the warmer one, elevator, no stairs." She held up the clipboard. "All we need is your signature to close the deal." I looked past them, into the kitchen that wasn't there, to the window where my husband used to read the paper at dawn. A wind picked up and a curtain of insulation blew past like dirty snow. "You did this without permission?" I asked, nodding at the orange paper. "In progress," the son quickly replied. "Papers are a formality." Formality? The word cut through. How could my own son turn my life into a construction schedule and call it love? He reached for my shoulder with the same hand that had once held my hand when I crossed the street in a busy place. "Trust me," he said. "We'll work this out." I smiled then, just a little, cautiously. They didn't know the bank had been calling me with one inquiry after another. They didn't know I'd frozen the deal after the last investment opportunity he'd pitched. They didn't know I had copies of the will, my title, my husband's letters, tucked away out of reach of the tablets. The neighbor's doorbell camera winked at me from across the street. The excavator coughed and went silent. "Okay," I said quietly. "Let's make sure this is all sorted out." They heard the agreement. I heard the ticking of a clock. I walked up to the lilac, brushing dust from the leaves. The scent was faint, but lingering like old promises. My husband had planted the bush when our first grandchild was born. He called it our calendar. "A new purple every spring," he said, "proof that all things can bloom again." He had been gone for 5 years. I pressed my palm to the rough bark until my heartbeat slowed. "Where am I staying tonight?" I asked. "Ours," my daughter-in-law answered quickly. "We've got the guest room ready." "Thank you," I said, "but I'm going to Lydia's. She's expecting me." That made my son's eyes twinkle. He'd hoped to keep me close so that conversations could be settled. Lydia lived 2 streets away and had a way of asking questions that cut through polite lies. I patted my purse. "I'm going to change my shoes. Then we'll discuss the plan." "Nothing to worry about," my son said. "I have it all under control." "I know," I said, letting him know I was serious. Lydia's kitchen smelled of lemon butter and coffee. She shoved a mug into my hands and set a plate of crackers on the table in case I had to chew to keep from screaming. "I felt the ground shaking this morning," she said. "I thought it was a garbage truck, then I saw people on your roof." "It wasn't a garbage truck," I said. I told her what I'd seen. The orange sign. The clipboard smile. The phrase "paperwork is a formality," her lips pressed together. "You're not signing anything," she said. "I'm not signing," I told her. "I'm taking it." We pulled up her doorbell app and rewound the day like a bad movie. There was my son at 7:12 a.m. talking to a man in a hard hat. At 8:03, a truck backed in with a bucket as wide as my kitchen table. At 9:16, the first wall fell. He clapped. I made myself watch all of it. Lydia put her hand over mine when the machine chewed through the bedroom, our bedroom, the one with the low window that caught sunrise on the closet mirror. "Do you have a copy?" I asked. "As of 5 seconds ago," she said, tapping the screen. "And I've got a backup set to the cloud." "Good. Tomorrow I'll ask the city for their file. Tonight, I'll ask the bank for mine at the bank, mister. Chen waited for me because Lydia had called ahead. He was 61 and had seen worse than family squabbles. He spoke in a calm that made people tell the truth. You put a fraud alert on the property after your husband died, he said, in the small office off the lobby. It's still active. We've had several inquiries. I flagged them. How many? I asked. 5 in the last 3 months. 2 were private lenders. 1 was a brokerage I don't like. He slid a printout across the desk with names and dates. Last week there was a pull for permit fees, he paused, from a title company. My signature? I asked. We don't have that, he said, but the county might. And the city. He wrote down the name of a contact in building and safety and circled it twice. Call him in the morning. Bring identification. They'll give you copies. I touched the envelope in my purse. The key inside had been in a tiny velvet pouch since the doctor told us we were running out of springtimes. My husband and I had driven to the bank together on a cold day, and I'd picked the safe deposit number because it matched the year we met. I had stood in the vault with a pen in my hand, and the words trust, durable, and revocable turning into something solid under my signature. We had spoken to a lawyer about safeguards then, how to protect me from the world, and, if necessary, from our own child. I had kept that folder in the dark because papers can be the quiet weapons. That night, I took the pouch from my purse and slid the key onto a chain around my neck. How could he think I would say yes? I asked Lydia in her driveway. The ginkgo dropped a yellow leaf onto my shoe like a slow answer. Because you always made room for his excuses, she said. But you don't have to make room for this. The city building department was in a low brick building that smelled like paper and coffee. A man with a mustache and a tie that had seen 100 permit counter arguments looked up when I gave the clerk my name. Ma'am, he said, stepping out from behind a half window. I'm Alvarez. I got a call from Mr. Chen. We shook hands. His palm was warm and dry. He led me to a chair in a small conference room and set a thick file on the table. We have 2 notices issued for your address, he said, tapping the orange duplicates. Unsafe demolition and a stop work order, no permits pulled. He looked at me over the top of his glasses. Do you know the contractor? I know my son, I said. He sat back, a breath through his nose like a quiet sigh. I'm sorry. He slid a photocopy across the table. This came in yesterday afternoon. It's a permit application submitted online. The signature is typed owner's agent. The name listed is your daughter-in-law's. I read the lines until they stopped swimming. There's a notary seal, I said, but no notary signature. Exactly, Alvarez said. It's a bad scan. The seal is real. The rest is wrong. We've referred it to our legal unit. Meanwhile, we issued the stop work. No one should be on that lot until this is sorted out. If you see activity, call me directly. He slid me a card with his cell number written on it. Take pictures from the sidewalk. Don't confront anyone. I won't, I said. Not yet. He nodded, approving the restraint. We'll also need an environmental assessment before anything proceeds. That house was old enough to have asbestos. If they disturbed it without a survey... He let the sentence hang. The fines wrote themselves at the end of it. On my way out, I asked for copies of everything with my address on it. The clerk made a stack and rubber banded it tight. Paper had weight again. By noon, I sat in a wood-paneled office that smelled like legal pads and winter coats. Mr. Harlan was 68, retired from the district attorney's office, and now the kind of lawyer people found from whispers. He listened with his hands folded, the way a man listens when he knows the shape of a story before you finish the sentence. He didn't rush me. When I told him about the year we met safe deposit number, he smiled with one side of his mouth. You and your husband planned, he said. Good. What do I do with him? I asked. We document, he said. We file a police report for vandalism and elder financial abuse. We file for a temporary restraining order to keep your son, his wife, and any agents off the property. We record a lis pendens to put the world on notice that there's a dispute. We alert the DA's Elder Abuse Unit and the State Licensing Board if your daughter-in-law holds a real estate license. He ticked items off like groceries. We preserve the neighbor's video, the city's stop work order, and any bank records. We don't tip them to the pieces they haven't thought of yet. What haven't they thought of? Moi? I asked. Demolition has a paper trail, he said. Haulers, dump receipts, hazardous waste manifests if there was any. If they cut corners, we'll find the corners. Also, insurance. Someone put their name on a binder for that excavator. We'll see whose policy is about to be very unhappy. He leaned forward. And we'll check title. You said you created a trust. I am the trustee, I said. It's revocable. There's a successor named. Any chance your son knows that? He asked. Not a chance, I said. We didn't tell him. He assumed everything would just move to him, like the mail. Harlan nodded. Then here's the plan. Tonight you sleep. Tomorrow we file. And when they call, and they will, be polite, be brief, and invite them to bring any documents they want you to sign to my office. I slept at Lydia's with the key cool against my skin. I dreamt of my husband tying twine around the lilac to train it upright after a storm. In the dream, the knot was neat and kind. I woke before dawn and walked to the lot when the sky was just lightening. The orange notice flickered in the breeze. The lilac stood stubborn. A robin hopped across the churned dirt like it refused to be intimidated by machinery. My son called at 8. Mom, we should talk about next steps. His voice had an edge I recognized from when he was a boy and wanted to be praised for finishing something he wasn't supposed to start. We should, I said. Bring whatever you need me to sign to Mr. Harlan's office at 2. He handles my affairs. A pause. Since when? Since your father died, I said. 2:00. Harlan's receptionist, a woman with red glasses and the patience of a saint, brought in lemon water. My son arrived with my daughter-in-law and a man I didn't know who introduced himself as project manager. He had the too wide smile of someone practiced at talking in circles. We're all on the same team here, my son said, taking a chair without waiting to be asked. We just want what's best. What's best, Harlan said pleasantly, is that no one sets foot on that lot until the court says who may. My client won't be signing anything today. My son's jaw worked. Mom, he said, switching to the tone he used in high school when he thought charm could erase a lie. This is unnecessary. We already started. Delays, cost, money. Then you should have waited, I said. The project manager slid a folder onto the table. We have investors lined up, he said. We can move fast, finish in 6 months. Your son will handle everything. My son, I said, doesn't handle me. Harlan opened the folder as if the papers belonged to him. This is a power of attorney, he said, lifting a page. It is not signed by my client. This is a permit application. The notary block is defective, and this... He held up a glossy rendering of a duplex with cheerful people on the balcony. Is very pretty. It is also irrelevant. He slid the papers back with surgical neatness. Here are the terms. You will cease all activity. You will produce insurance, contractor licenses, and all communications with any lender. You will provide a list of anyone who stepped foot on the property this week, and you will do it by close of business tomorrow. We don't have to give you anything, my daughter-in-law said. Her smile had cracked at the corner. This is family. Exactly, Harlan said. Which is why the DA's office likes these cases. He handed her a card. You can have your attorney call me. They left with their folder and their shrinking confidence. Harlan leaned back and looked at me over folded hands. They'll push, he said. They'll test your edges. Keep yours firm. By Friday, the TRO was signed. The deputy who served it had practiced his neutral face in a mirror. He walked up my son's front path and handed him the papers while a dog barked somewhere behind a fence. I watched from Lydia's window with a calm I didn't expect. The deputy tipped his head at me when he left, a small acknowledgement that the world had been a degree toward right. The calls started. First, the lender, Mr. Dawson, from a company with a name that sounded like used cars and promises. We need to clarify the title position, he said, trying to keep the smooth in his voice. There appears to be a trust. There is, I said. Is your son the beneficiary? He asked. No, I said. Not anymore. Silence. Paper shuffled. We may need to revisit our agreement, he murmured. You do that, I said, and send me everything you think you have. By Monday, Alvarez called. We took a look at the dump receipts, he said. They don't match the debris I saw. And we sampled soil. There's asbestos. The environmental unit is referring fines. He took no pleasure in it. He sounded tired. You should be aware the contractor's license number they wrote on the application belongs to a plumber. They thought no one would check, I said. They always think no one will, he said. In the afternoon, my grandson came to Lydia's alone. 12 years old, all elbows and sincerity, with a paper bag of donuts held like an offering. Dad says you're mad, he said. Are you mad at me? Never, I said, and meant it with a clean intensity that startled me. Come sit. I broke a donut in half so the powdered sugar wouldn't betray his visit. Sometimes grown-ups make big mistakes. We're going to fix them. Dad said the house was old, he said. He said it was going to fall down. The house was old, I said. So am I. We both still stood. I brushed sugar from his sleeve. Do you remember when your grandfather taught you to plant bulbs? How you can put something in the dark and trust it to rise? He nodded. I miss him. Me too, I said. But he left us instructions. I touched my necklace. We're just following them. When my grandson left, I sat in the quiet and let myself cry for 5 minutes. Then I got up and went to the bank. The safe deposit room smelled like metal and old air. The clerk left me alone with the box and my breathing. I spread the papers on the little table, trust documents, a copy of the deed, an old letter in my husband's unhurried hand. He had written it after his last hospital stay, on lined paper with a plea and a plan. If you are reading this without me, he had begun, do the next right thing, even if it feels small. He had made lists of banks, account numbers, and the names of people he trusted. He had drafted a short note for our son, gentle, stern, clear. We love you. We will not finance recklessness. Take care of your mother. It will teach you how to be the man you told me you wanted to be. I read the note twice and put it back. I took photocopies of everything else and slid them into a folder labeled with my own neat hand. On the way out, I stopped at the copier and made one more set for Harlan. That week stretched thin and then snapped back. The DA's office called. A woman with a voice like a bell said the words Elder Abuse Unit and intake. I told her the facts. She asked for documents. I sent them. She asked for patience. I said I had 2 weeks' worth. On Thursday, my daughter-in-law left me a voicemail, trying again for honey. We should talk, she said. This has gotten out of hand. We can make this work. You'll love the new place. In the background, I heard my son say something sharp. She lowered her voice. Please call me. I didn't. Instead, I took a pie to Alvarez's office because men who do their jobs in a tide of complaint deserve pie. He took it with a surprised laugh, then drew me into the small conference room and showed me a photo of the orange notice now torn down. Did you take it down? I asked. No, he said. Your son did. We put a new one up and added a chain to the fence. If anyone cuts it, I want a call. He slid another paper across the table. The fines are preliminary. The big ones will follow the environmental report. Who will those be addressed to, Wet? I asked. The party performing unpermitted work, he said, eyes on mine. I have a good guess. Friday morning, Harlan set the trap. Invite them to coffee, Miss Adair. Aha, he said. Neutral ground. Tell them you want to hear their plan. I'll be in the next room with an investigator. Don't accuse. Ask questions. Let them talk. So I called my son and asked him to meet me at the diner near the hardware store, the one where the coffee tastes like the same pot has been brewing since 1974. He came with my daughter-in-law and the project manager as if ballast might keep their story from listing. I wore my husband's old windbreaker because I needed the feeling of him near my shoulders. I want to understand, I said, after the waitress poured our cups. Explain it to me like I'm slow. My son exhaled like he was finally getting his chance to sell. He laid out their timeline, the lender, the demo crew, the duplex, the sale. We're saving you money, he said. You'll have an asset that pays for itself. How did you get the permit? I asked. We started without it, the project manager said, a hint of irritation slipping. We were going to file after. It happens all the time. How did you get my signature, Ryan? I asked. We had a notary, my daughter-in-law said. It's standard. You were out of town? How did I sign while I was on an airplane, bus? I asked, tilting my head, the way a teacher does when she knows the answer and waits for you to discover you don't. Her mouth opened and closed. We had authorization, she said finally. Your son said... Harlan stepped to the table then, the investigator a pace behind. He set a small recorder down for everyone to see and sat. Hello, he said mildly. We're here to clear up authorizations. My son's face went gray. You set us up, he said to me, the boy in him showing through a man's lines. No, I said, you set this up. I brought light. The investigator asked questions like a man winding a clock. Slow, inevitable. Who hired the demo crew? Who signed the work order? What was said to the notary? Which bank account did the deposit come from? The answers came, reluctant then tumbling. My daughter-in-law said a name I recognized from a real estate sign near the freeway. The project manager blurted the lender's fee structure and winced when Harlan wrote it down. My son said, we were going to surprise you, and I watched the word surprise try to dress itself as kindness and fail. When the coffee was gone and the recorder clicked, Harlan stood. No one contacts my client except through me, he said. No one steps on that lot. If you cut that chain, the next conversation you have will be with a judge in a room with bad art. He looked at my son for a long, quiet second. Call your own lawyer. They left by the side door. I paid for the coffee because some habits are hard to break, and then I sat in the car and let the tears come again. Harlan pretended to be on his phone until I finished. When he looked up, his eyes were kind, without pity. It's a hard thing, he said, but you're doing the next right thing. The next right thing was court. The courtroom was cold. The judge wore glasses low on his nose and the expression of a man who had heard every story twice. He listened to Harlan without interrupting. He listened to the lawyer my son had hired, the kind of man who calls women young lady because he thinks it's charming even when their hair is gray. This is a family misunderstanding, the lawyer said. It is a demolition, the judge said, tapping the file. With no permit. And a forged application, and a stop work order willfully ignored. He looked at me. Ma'am, do you want to speak? I didn't want to, but I did. My husband and I bought that house when we were 26. I said, we raised our children there. We planned for me to be safe if I outlived him. We told our son we loved him enough to say no when no was needed. He did not like hearing that. My throat tightened. I swallowed. I went to visit a friend and came home to the ground. The judge nodded once, his mouth align. Temporary restraining order granted, exclusive possession to petitioner, respondents to have no contact with petitioner outside counsel. Matter set for preliminary injunction hearing in 30 days. He rapped his gavel like punctuation. Outside in the hallway, my son looked at the floor. He didn't speak. My daughter-in-law stared at a spot on the wall as if a door might appear there. Harlan steered me past, with a hand at my elbow, a gentleman's gesture from another time. The fines arrived like marching orders, city, environmental, state. The asbestos report was bad and the cleanup estimate worse. The invoices were addressed to the name on the work order, my son's, written in his own hand. The lender sent a notice of default because whatever bridge he thought he built had no land to land on. Dawson called again, less smooth. We're unwinding, he said. We didn't know about the trust. I'm sure you didn't, I said. That night, Lydia and I sat on my back steps that no longer existed and planned a garden that did. It will take time, she said, but the ground remembers. A week later, a man in a polo shirt knocked on Lydia's door at dusk. He was thick through the middle, the way men get when they carry stress like bricks. "I'm with the hauling company," he said. "We never got paid." "We're going to put a lien." He looked past me as if unsure which woman was the one to speak to. He had a folded invoice in his hand, sweaty at the edges. "You should," I said. "And call this number," I added, handing him Alvarez's card. "They'll want to talk about your dump receipts." He took the card like a lifeline. "You didn't know?" he asked. "I know now," I said. "I'm sorry you're in the middle." In the morning, Harlan called with a voice that had caffeine in it. "There's a second lender," he said. "Your daughter-in-law took a short-term renovation advance against future sale proceeds. She used the duplex rendering and wrote your name as approving party. The notary is her friend." He paused. "That friend just had her commission suspended." "What happens to my son?" I asked. The question was a scrape in my throat. "Consequences," Harlan said. "Some of them negotiable, some not." I asked him for something then I hadn't planned to ask. "Can I buy his note?" I said. "The business one. The loan he took last year for the investment group he said he had. He used his truck and equipment as collateral. I want to buy it and call it due." Harlan was quiet for a beat. "That's surgical," he said finally. "It keeps it in the family, but not in the way he expects." "I won't make him homeless," I said, "but I will make him honest." He made calls. 2 days later, I sat in a different bank, this one with new carpet and a bolder logo. They had packaged my son's business loan and sold it to a fund that sold it again when payments got spotty. I bought it for less than my husband would have paid for a new roof. The paper slid across the desk with a satisfying whisper. I signed with a hand that didn't shake. The sheriff came with a polite knock and a truck behind him. "We have an order to seize collateral for a defaulted business loan," he said. He looked like a man who had done this before and wished he didn't have to today. "Is the owner here?" My son stepped onto his porch with the stiff shoulders of someone bracing for a wave. He saw the truck. He saw me. He saw the papers. He closed his eyes, then opened them. "You did this," he said. "I did," I said. "You can buy them back. With a payment plan, every receipt accounted for, every dollar explained." He laughed once, a bitter sound. "You always did love your paperwork." "It's what keeps the roof on," I said, "and the house standing." He sat on the step and put his head in his hands. For a moment, he was 6 again, tired after a tantrum. I stood there and loved him and did not save him. The sheriff waited with the patience of a man who has learned not to fill silences. That night, my daughter-in-law called, her voice flat. "You've ruined us," she said. "No," I said. "You did that when you brought an excavator to my lawn." "We can fix this," she said, switching to quick. "Take your name off the police report. Tell the DA it was a misunderstanding. We'll put you in the new unit, rent-free for life. We'll even give the grandkids a piece when we sell." "You just described my trust," I said. "Except in my version, no one has to steal." I let my breath out slowly. "Bring me a signed confession of judgment for the cost of the cleanup and the fines. Bring me the notarized resignation of any power of attorney you think you have. Bring me a letter to your licensing board admitting what you did. Then we can talk about not ruining you." "You're not serious," she said. "I'm old," I said. "I don't bluff." 2 days later, we met at Harlan's again. My daughter-in-law's lawyer was a younger woman who didn't smile. She slid papers across the table. "My client will pay the cleanup and the fines," she said. "She will resign any claims. She requests that you not pursue criminal charges." "The DA will make that decision," Harlan said, "but your client's cooperation will be noted." "And my son?" I asked. My son looked at me with eyes that had learned new words: consequence, shame, quiet. "I'll sign," he said. "I'll do whatever it takes." "It will take time," I said, "and work I can't do for you." He nodded, and for the first time in months, I believed him. Not trusted him. Belief is smaller and sturdier. We signed. The investigator took copies. The judge blessed the preliminary injunction and set the civil case on a schedule that felt like seasons. The DA's office filed one count for forging a public document against my daughter-in-law and suspended prosecution conditioned on her paying the fines and completing a course that had the word ethics in it. They referred my son to counseling and a program that taught financial literacy to men who thought shortcuts were paved. In the quiet after the papers, I stood on the lot and closed my eyes. I could see the very first day we walked into that house, a young woman who thought marriage was a tide you could predict, and a young man who believed he could build anything with his hands. We had been wrong about some things and right about others. We had stayed, we had grown lilacs. We had made a boy who had to learn late what we had tried to teach him early. Rebuilding took a year. I made the plans small and stubborn. 2 bedrooms, wide doorways, a porch that faces morning. Alvarez visited twice, not because he had to, but because he wanted to see a right thing happen. He stood at the edge of the site and nodded at the forms as if they were a line of men standing straight. "Good crew," he said. "Licensed. Insured. Pi helps," I said, and he laughed. When the framing went up, my grandson wrote his name on a beam in pencil. "So I'm part of it," he said. "You always were," I said, "even when you didn't know." In spring, we planted 3 new lilacs. Lydia dug with the determination of a woman who has seen storms and still puts her hands in the dirt. We staked them and tied neat knots. My son came that afternoon with work gloves and groceries. He stood at the edge of the yard as if the ground might accuse him. He didn't ask to come in. "I brought you soup," he said. "It's not much." "It's something," I said. "Thank you." He looked at the lilacs. "Dad would have liked this," he said. "Your father liked anything that grew," I said. "But he liked honesty best." "I know," he said. He swallowed. "I'm trying." "I see that," I said. "Keep trying." We ate soup on the new porch when it was finished, Lydia and I wrapped in blankets because we refused to wait for a warmer day to enjoy what we had built. The house smelled like new wood and lemon oil. The clock I rescued from a thrift store ticked like a small, content animal. The light found every corner I wanted it to find. I changed my will. I set the house in an irrevocable trust for my grandchildren with a clause that would make a lawyer nod. My son is not cut off, but he does not hold the corner of anything. If he wants to be inside this home, he will come in through the door, like any guest, by being invited, by taking off his shoes, by speaking softly near fragile things. Sometimes I stand by the lilacs with my hand on the bark. When the wind moves through the leaves, they sound like paper, like pages turned. I think of the women who will hear this story, the ones who were told they were overreacting when they saw smoke, who were asked to sign forms with the word love written all over the signature line. I want them to know you can be kind and still say no. You can be small and still be a wall. The night before I moved back in, I opened my husband's letter again. Do the next right thing he had written, even if it feels small. That night, the right thing was to put fresh sheets on the bed and set a glass of water by the lamp. The next right thing the next morning was to call my son and ask him if he wanted to help hang the curtains. He came with a drill and quiet hands. We argued for 2 minutes over whether the rod should sit higher, and then we laughed. It wasn't forgiveness, it was air. On the first Sunday in the new house, I made pancakes and burned one on purpose because my husband used to say the first one is for the pan. I set a plate for myself and one for the empty chair I don't need to explain. I walked outside with a cup of coffee and looked at the lilacs. The smallest one had a bud, tight and certain, proof that things can bloom again. People ask me if I regret anything. I regret waiting to learn how strong I am. I regret mistaking peace for silence and love for compliance. I do not regret the paperwork, the pie, the fence chain, the court, the lemon oil, the small recorder on a diner table, the choice to be the woman who brings light. I do not regret standing on the ground of my own life and saying, stop, enough. When the wind is right, I can still smell the old house. Not the dust and insulation, though sometimes that too. But the cinnamon of December mornings and the laundry that once steamed in the cold air, and the way a birthday candle smells when it gives up its little life. I think of the boy who clapped for a falling wall and the man who learned to hold up his own. If you're listening, if your hands are shaking and your name is bent in half on a mailbox somewhere, if someone you love is telling you paperwork is a formality while the ground shakes under your feet, hear me. The right thing might be small. Do it anyway. Tie the knot neat and kind. Call the man with the mustache and the patient eyes. Put the key on a chain, make copies, keep receipts, save your lilacs if you can, plant new ones if you can't. The story didn't end with a gavel. It ended on a Tuesday morning when my grandson came over with a science project and asked if he could use the kitchen table. He spread out wires and batteries and a small bulb. "It's supposed to light," he said. "The directions say it will." "Let's follow them," I said. We did. The bulb glowed, small, steady, enough. He looked up at me, his face shining with the simple thrill of cause and effect. "It works," he said. "It does," I said, my throat tight with a happiness I didn't fear. "See? When you connect things the right way, the light knows what to do."
My grandma told me this story. I have many more stories. Subscribe so you don't miss the most interesting things.